Hello, I'm John Furrier with theCUBE. We are here in Seattle at AWS's headquarters for a halftime report with theCUBE and AWS, getting the updates, what's happened, lots happened in the past 6 months. Foundation models, the AI infrastructure is advancing very, very fast. The model efficiency, the new usage patterns are bringing in a new wave of innovation, setting the table for the agentic wave, but ultimately the business logic and the applications. Empowering all that are these models and how they work with each other. We've got a great expert here, Atul Deo, the Director of Product at AWS Bedrock. He's got the keys to the kingdom. We're going to get the scoop here. So great to have you. Thanks for coming on. Good to see you.
Thanks, John. Excited to be here.
You've been building at Amazon multiple projects, engineering side now, the hottest area of these models, because everyone can see the benefit. We're starting to see the first wave of agents coming in on workflows that are well-defined, undifferentiated heavy lifting. But it's exciting because it's becoming a programming layer of value on the data where these models are shining in the enterprise and these new consumer apps that are coming out. You're starting to see new entrepreneurial activity in the startup ecosystem. Your partners are integrating in, so there's all kinds of integration opportunities. There's new kinds of opportunities around using data in new ways. There's new usage patterns that are spawning more creativity. A lot of people are looking at this and saying, wow, I could actually refactor my business model. So just up and down the stack, there's massive amounts of innovation. So give us the updates. So much has happened. It's like a full year has happened in 6 months. On your watch alone, I can't even count how many updates on the models there have been. Nova, Claude, Anthropic's kicking butt with you guys. So like, we're seeing tons of stuff. What's the update in the past? What's happened in the past 6 months?
So obviously, John, a lot's happened in this space. This is one of the fastest growing spaces that I've at least seen in my time. Obviously, we've seen the emergence of a lot of capable models. More recently, we've seen Sonnet 4 and Opus 4. These are really powerful models. They're particularly well on agentic use cases. They have improved reasoning abilities. They're also great at following instructions. Now, I think this is one of the underrated kind of things that we don't talk about enough. We talk about agentic capabilities, but particularly a model being able to follow instructions and being good at it, I think makes a huge difference in the entire workflow. So we are seeing kind of improved ability for some of these cloud models. We also have been busy launching some of our first-party models with Nova. We launched Nova Premier, which is an incredibly powerful model, which also comes with remarkably good price performance. On the model, in addition to the model layer, we have also been busy launching. So we at reInvent last year, we launched a number of capabilities based on customer feedback. One of the most popular capabilities, and which a personal favorite of mine, is prompt caching. Now, the thing with prompt caching is, particularly as you think about agentic use cases, getting the agent to work is one thing, but also making it cost effective and fast is an important thing. And in agentic use cases, there's typically a lot of instructions that are part of the prompt for the agent. And now these instructions have to be fed every single time. And the cost can add up. And also, the time to first token increases if you don't cache these tokens. With prompt caching in Amazon Bedrock, which we just made generally available in the last few months after reInvent, now allows customers to use this capability for cloud models, for Nova models, and get remarkable price performance. So they can save up to like 90% of your costs by caching these tokens. Now that's just one example. In addition to that, we also made intelligent prompt routing generally available. Now this is combination, allowing customers to use a combination of a cheaper model and a more capable model, I should say faster model and a more capable model for the same application. Now dynamically at runtime, customers can send the same query to a cheaper model or a faster model if it can. It doesn't have to necessarily invoke the larger model. Now that again can lead to significant cost savings and practically no difference in terms of the customer experience. Now obviously, in addition to prompt caching, intelligent prompt routing, we are seeing customers use I think the paradigm of kind of how the applications around generative AI, they are changing from just being pure real-time in nature to kind of this more agentic kind of nature where not every request has to be served immediately. Like the way most customers have applied generative AI, they almost had the existing use cases. Again, if you think about pre-generative AI, most popular use cases for AI were in customer care, right? Where usually there is an end kind of user and they need a response right away. Now that's the very typical paradigm, like where customers say, oh, generative AI does those things really well, and I want a response right away. But where the puck is now shifting, and we're increasingly seeing a focus, is more on the not so real time, more asynchronous use cases. And typically it's kind of very similar to how real world happens. Like one of our execs or Matt sends me an email and asks for something complex. He's not expecting a response in near real time. He would rather have me go spend some time, think, do the work, collaborate with other people, and get back with some comprehensive thing, and not just tell me what the answer is, but tell actually that I have done what you asked for. And I think that kind of paradigm that requires a different set of tooling, different set of infrastructure capabilities in the background, because you want to be able to do that in a cost-effective manner as well. Because doing everything in a near real time is not going to be scalable in the long run. So I think we're starting to see that's kind of where I think particularly now these newer models, like as we were talking before we started to streaming, there are two things that are required here. One is a set of tools to make agents. The second is the models themselves. I think the capabilities of both have to kind of go lock in step. If you have a very awesome set of tools, but you don't have the capable models, you're not necessarily going to have the desired result that you're expecting.
Yeah, I love that. I love that progression, because Mary Meeker just put out a report recently. It's like 100 zillion pages. But why that's important is that she pioneered the Internet Online Population Report back on the web wave, and that was online population. More people use the web, therefore the advances happen. So we're seeing that progression of some maturing fast. So first token out is a concept. You mentioned the one-shot answer.
Yes.
Fast. Okay, I got a response, great answer, and I put the LinkedIn post or whatever I'm doing. Now you have like multi-step thinking, which basically is a data problem, a data architecture problem, but also a relationship to the infrastructure, because now you have resource management. So we're starting to see the advanced aperture of use cases scale out to be broader. I mean, you got more broad use cases.
All right.
I want to think and have a better answer, I got more time. I want a fast answer, first token out. Or now I got reasoning, more tokens are needed. So all that puts pressure on the scale of the system, both the hardware and the clusters, as well as the data layer, what's available for data. Again, the complexity is increasing as the functionality demand increases. So more tokens requires bigger systems, compute. So that seems to be the current state. Now, we didn't even get to the application layer. So that's just looking down. Looking up, the business logic is being integrated in. So that's kind of like the current problem. What's your reaction to that, and how do you guys view that? Because this seems to be the next hurdle of innovation where, okay, I got more complexity, I need more data sources, I got to manage the hardware from an efficiency, performance, and cost standpoint while providing the app layer support. That seems to be, what's your reaction to that? What's your frame?
So I think let's kind of go from different layers of stack. I think first and foremost, you got to have incredibly compelling hardware. And I think we have been investing a long time in kind of infrastructure and specifically custom chips. And we are heavily using Trainium 2 for Amazon Bedrock and for powering these models. And that allows us to kind of get good performance for our customers. The next layer of abstract, or kind of in terms of kind of the stack, we think about Bedrock infrastructure. And I think there, obviously, the pure on-demand kind of real-time, almost real-time responses, I think that has been the existing paradigm. We also introduced an offering called Batch. Basically allows you to send large volume requests and get kind of response sometime in 24 hours. It is 50% cheaper. But I think we do expect not every use case, there is something in middle as well, and you're going to start seeing kind of where kind of, it's kind of like, I don't respond to the email in 24 hours. That's too long of an SLA, but I usually have to kind of hustle kind of and respond in a few hours. So we're going to see some improvements kind of in how fast we can kind of do that. And again, that allows us to take, help customers move faster, but also be efficient on the infrastructure side. So we're going to make a lot of improvements on our end so that customers can get responses that are not, as I said, not real time, but kind of get them faster. The next layer of iteration would be on the tooling side. You're going to see, you obviously have seen MCP has become a big protocol. We expose a lot of our AWS services. We have MCP server implementations that we have publicly released. Customers can use that and start interacting with our services.
Why is MCP important right now? That's Why is that relevant? I mean, certainly cool. The alpha builders are all over this. And what is it and what's the benefit?
I think there are two things that come to mind with MCP for me. I think the first is the analogy. I think this is not my original analogy, but MCP is kind of like a good standard interface for connectivity. It's kind of like the USB-C for AI. I really like that analogy. It's like one interface. It's a great connector. And I think the difference...
Model connector.
Correct. Connected to model and your data, right? I think it's a good kind of interface for connecting models to data and systems in general. And I think the two things that I like about MCP, number one is things are dynamic. An application can discover different sources and it doesn't have to be hardwired beforehand. And second one is, unlike kind of API, which is typically stateless, this one can maintain state and it can be secure and things like that. So those are kind of like interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a phenomenal advancement, and then the tooling side's moving fast too, because a lot of the integration in the old way, the web APIs, okay, connect APIs, but now you have agents that have state, there's delegation, there's trust requirements. They're doing things, they're taking action, they have agency.
Yeah.
This is now a new factor.
Yeah. Agency has a new meaning now.
Agency, authority, but they're acting on behalf
Yeah.
of something.
Yeah.
A little bit more intelligent, and more intelligence will come in. That's a whole another thread, but like that's a super new thing. So I would imagine with the tooling advances, with the coding assistance, and with Q for developer, you're going to see massive, hey, I got to build a tool to integrate. I don't need to spend weeks building a tool. I can do it in 48 hours.
Absolutely. I think, so right now, agents are still kind of, the models, as I said, models are getting better and better. And so far, I think the biggest kind of area where we have seen agents kind of deployed successfully at scale have been primarily in the realm of code generation and kind of software development broadly. We are starting to see examples where customers are using agents for complex use cases, but so far, they have been mostly in the software development space. And I think as kind of models like Claude Sonnet 4 and Opus 4, kind of as they become kind of, right now customers are probably like starting to use the models and the actual deployments at scale for new use cases other than existing code generation use cases that are starting to kind of happen. So we would probably see some of these effects in the next few months.
You know, it's interesting at reInvent, everyone's always trying to read the tea leaves and connect the dots. I think you guys were on the right side of this, but what's clear in the first 6 months of the year, is looking back at the first half of the year, it's clear that the two hottest areas are sales and marketing and coding. And if you look at it from a business standpoint, that's where the value is, right? The value is right in those areas. Every business has to code stuff. There's applications, there's interfaces, and then obviously sales and marketing is, you sell stuff and sell value. So that's going to expand. And now agents are going to work in both those areas. So now multi-step reasoning is a hot topic.
Yeah.
This is the multi-step, it's thinking, some people call it thinking, but there's reasoning. So there's multiple steps to take. Swami talked at length about this both at reInvent, at HumanX, I saw his speech there. This is kind of where the business logic meets kind of the agent bedrock layer. This is now the fun, kind of the innovative, creative builder piece. What's your view
So
on
I
that?
think one customer example, literally as you were mentioning that started coming to my mind, which was I won't name the specific company, but it's a mortgage startup, and basically they have been able to implement agents to kind of completely automate kind of some of their kind of end kind of customer kind of workflows. And I mean, I don't know when was the last time you got a mortgage. I got one a few years ago, and I think the whole process, the whole kind of process is like so painful. And I think this company is making use of agents to dramatically improve kind of the customer experience, and they're seeing improved significant multifold improvement in their conversion rates with customers based on this agentic experience, because they're no longer tied to kind of, hey, the human is not being responsive, or they're not kind of like, and even on their internal workforce, like the efficiency and the effectiveness is just tremendous, because customers already done this. Here's the next step. Here's kind of everything's attached, and like oh wow, like the internal employees are seeing like a massive boost in productivity.
You know, and I know that Amazon, you guys have a mandate that everyone should be using AI and build their muscle. Teams have been directed by Andy and Matt. Hey, you know, leverage AI, because you got to perfect it. If you're going to be the master of AI, you better use it yourself. To your point about this example, there are all these, I would say, boring areas out there that are being innovated by non-techies. I interviewed a startup. They're working on agents in real estate transactions. So you got a buyer and a seller. The seller of the building, and you got a buyer of the building. Now, that process takes months.
Yeah.
They've shrunk it down to days because they're using AI. Now, this is a creative person who knows the process.
Yeah.
Not a coder. And the old way was like, okay, great idea. Hey, I need an engineer. Where's the team to build it? So she on her own got the prototype up and running,
Nice.
proved the use case,
Yeah.
gets a coder, has code assistants, they're in market in weeks.
Yeah.
They now have a business. This is the innovation we're seeing in the market.
Totally.
This is real. So I'm seeing great examples. Now let's go to the enterprise. They're going, wow, we used to do things the old way.
Yeah.
Now we're in the cloud. We have now secure data on-prem. I got the edge exploding. I got computer vision. That's a data problem. So I'm going to need to up my cloud game, deal with my data. I got my databases everywhere. So that challenge is a little bit different. How do you view that when you talk to customers that have enterprise AI needs? They're kind of reverting back to fourth grade and go, well, we should put it on-prem. So there's kind of a debate right now between like, okay, what is the ideal solution to leverage my cloud presence and my on-prem needs? Because sometimes compliance requires it on-prem if you're a bank or whatever. Sometimes they're in the cloud. Sometimes it's all in the cloud. So there's a data engineering discussion around, okay, what do I do?
Yeah, so I'll just be candid. Like I think most of the customer examples that I have come across, my conversations, I have not usually seen the on-prem conversation come up. What typically comes up is, hey, I want a better balance of accuracy, latency, and cost. And one of the things that we also launched at reInvent last year was this model distillation capability. And I know that's one of the topics you are passionate about. Just really kind of taking the outputs of a larger model and kind of using that to kind of pass on the intelligence to a smaller model, which is obviously going to be more cost effective, but more importantly, it's also going to be fast in terms of the end user responses. So we made model distillation generally available. It is available for Claude models. It's available for Noah models, for Llama models. And you obviously can kind of use, for example, you can distill intelligence from a Noah Pro or a Noah Premier into a Noah Lite or a Noah Micro. So that's, and that obviously you can use some of the larger intelligence models intelligence into the smaller ones. And I think having that workflow be seamless, I think is kind of where the magic is.
Talk about that. Let's unpack that because I think this is a hot area because there was a big rage about small language models.
Yeah.
Of course, we were promoting that because we think small language models have domain expertise,
Yeah.
but you don't have to build a separate model. Now, I mean, you might have a separate small data model.
Yeah.
It could have language in it. It could have, vision or computer graphics and multimodal capabilities, but that doesn't have to be a model, like a whole language model. So distilling off the big models is the technique because it's faster.
Yeah.
It saves time.
So essentially,
Or it does it. I mean, how are people using this? How are people distilling off the main models and why?
Yeah, so essentially, as I said, like typically customers for their end applications, they want like that particular, they want to be a specialist in that particular area. And usually these large models are kind of, they are experts in almost everything, but they're not specialized enough on one thing. And for when you are actually deploying a model in production, you don't care about probably everything kind of brilliance of the model. You don't care about, can this model be really good on the agentic use case and chain of thought? You probably don't need that use because it's in your application. It's targeted for a particular use case. What you really want is, hey, is the model going to be incredibly good on this mortgage kind of workflow, for example? Is it going to really understand kind of what the customer is, kind of questions the customer is going to ask, kind of things that you are going to organize and do. So essentially what happens in this case is, as a customer, when I am going through a distillation workflow, I'm going to give a bunch of examples to for the bunch of prompts for the larger model, and I'm going to extract responses. And I'm then basically behind the scenes, what Bedrock would do as part of the distillation workflow is we'll generate additional data for kind of the distillation process based on the prompts that a customer provided, because the customer does not have to do the work to be comprehensive. It can give a few indicative, 30, 40 prompts of what it wants kind of generally for the distillation purpose, and then behind the scenes we can generate 10x more data, which is basically synthetic data, to kind of then that synthetic data response of that larger model then gets used to essentially kind of make the smaller model more targeted and focused. And generally, as you know, like when you fine tune any model, you kind of reduce some of its generic kind of expertise and you make it more kind of specialized. And that ultimately that distilled model can then be deployed in production, and you get your better combination of accuracy, latency, and cost for that particular use
Yeah, I
case.
love that targeted approach. And again, I think one of the things we're seeing, I'd love to get your reaction to it, is it reminds me of the scene in The Matrix, the movie. Everyone's seen The Matrix. The scene where he says, upload how to fly a helicopter. And then they upload to Nero's head the helicopter.
Yeah.
Now he's a pro helicopter driver or judo expert. That's what models are. And so I see verticals like healthcare, life sciences. We're seeing robotics plugging in models from open source. So there's a trend towards a long tail and specialized models that have to be accurate, not stuff in Hugging Face, just like we're talking. This is approved.
Yes.
So I see an era where models will be SLA based, accurate, targeted. How does that work in your mind? How is that going to progress?
I think the robotics use case is an interesting one that's probably going to progress, but particularly in areas like healthcare and financial services, where the accuracy of the model, like LLMs are going to hallucinate like no matter what. So one of the areas where we have been actively investing in is an area of differentiation for Bedrock is automated reasoning. So we also launched that one of the capabilities last year, where we really want to make sure that the responses of the model are not just based on LLM, but we have independent verifiers of the model that basically use mathematical proof and basically say, based on the company's kind of rules or knowledge base, we have verified this, and the answer is like 99.9% correct. If it is not certain, at least it will tell you. And when it says that it's certain of certain answers, it can actually show the various rules that it knows of in your corpus, in the customer's corpus, and that it used to kind of ensure it's
so humans can get in the loop and then look through that and say, okay, I verify that, and be confident.
So I think that is an area where, particularly as the use cases that these models start getting, and when they're getting into mission critical areas, like you're going to need like more kind of certainty. Like they are good enough. The developer use case is a good one because this is an expert. Like developers are experts. They are in the loop. We are not in the point where click, and you're like, you have a production ready app ready to go. The developer is the ultimate expert.
They're doing code review.
Exactly.
They didn't write the code.
So now they have not such a interesting thing to do, but
they can literally eyeball. I mean, developers
exactly.
are smart. Okay, syntax error or whatever, bad reference there. Okay, no problem. Check.
Absolutely.
And business logic users can
and
do
also
that.
there is an easy way in code to actually verify the output, whether it's working or not. You can also do test code generation, like unit tests and like stuff, to actually ensure you have coverage. But in the real world, not everything can be verified that way. And sometimes it's based on your company's kind of heuristics and kind of various domain knowledge that you may have. So this is where automated reasoning comes in, and it's also a thing that we have used in AWS for years for things like IAM, Access Analyzer, and so on. So I think we are really kind of doubling down on our expertise here to kind of give customers something they can stand behind.
I think you guys are really onto something. I think the efficiency piece you were mentioning about distillation points to the era of cost, like prompt caching, intelligent routing. These point to this era of evolution around, okay, I don't need to do all the big stuff to get that answer. I can understand the scope of an agent or query or prompt and get it down. I think DeepSeek I saw as a great example of how they were so efficient algorithmically and how they managed around that piece. Everyone was going crazy about DeepSeek, but I love what they did. But I think the real innovation is how they got there. Explain that, because I think this is one of those areas where model choice matters, because if you have a lot of model choices, you can actually engineer the efficiency side. So the cost is a huge issue.
So DeepSeek is remarkable for a number of reasons. It is one of the first thinking models where it can actually go go take an output and go back, feed it to itself, and so on. But one of the interesting things about DeepSeek was the actual training cost itself was significantly lower. We don't. There's a lot of debate on the specifics. But one of the things that they did was unique was actually using reinforcement learning as opposed to reinforcement learning with human feedback, RLHF. In the past, basically, you would have humans give the preference data, and then it would feed to a reward model, and then the reward model would use to do adaptation. Here, as part of during the training process for DeepSeek, basically the model was able to introspect and basically say, is it in line with human feedback or not, and quickly adapt. And that obviously significantly helped in the innovation and how fast they could launch.
It's a tell sign too, I think, of some of where the optimization will come in and what you optimize for. So I want to come come back to the original premise that Matt Garman made 2 years ago here on theCUBE. I asked him about, because we put out the power law. We were the first ones to put out that power law. We were like, what's this power law? The little bit popular models, but then there's going to be a long tail and a fat belly of specialty models, size and performance. And he was adamant, model choice was huge.
Yes.
Can it continue forward today? That was a good call.
Yeah.
Why is model choice important? You guys were there with that from day one. That was Bedrock's foundation,
Yes.
first principle. Why did you guys go that way, and then how did it turn out? What's happening now?
So I think there is some history there, right? I think so. When we again, I was there on Bedrock since day one. So if you look at some of our successful businesses, like think about RDS and an example with Aurora and what we have done with other database engines in RDS. I think we benefit a lot by giving customers the choice. Customers have different use cases. We see incredible business on Aurora, and we see incredible business on SQL Server and on Oracle and everything, I think on RDS. And I think the same kind of mental model is very relevant for foundation models, where we know we have to build our first party models, and we are making progress with Nova quite a bit in the past few months. But we also know at the same time that there is going to be incredible set of new models coming out. Claude obviously is awesome, but we are seeing a rise of DeepSeek. I'm excited about kind of whatever is the next version of DeepSeek that comes out. There's Llama, and I think it's hard to predict kind of who's going to be the next kind of big thing here. I think this is a space where kind of things are changing very rapidly. And of course, we would like to kind of know what to be the best, but customers will have different kind of requirements on this curve of accuracy, latency, and cost. And we want to give customers all sorts of options. I think in addition to just the generic aspects of it, there's also a specialized domain or industry vertical aspect to large language models, and that's why we launched Bedrock Marketplace last year as well. And we have plans to make that even more kind of better over the next few months. But basically, in addition to
it's like an app store for models, pretty much, right?
Yeah, exactly. But in addition to the main kind of models that we have in Bedrock today, you can also get, like, if customer has a specific need, for example, evolutionary scale as a model which is focused on life sciences. And if a customer is in that space and they care about that particular model, they have access to, and they can use that same model in Bedrock along with the rest of the tooling and kind of go about their use case. They're not blocked. I think that's basically kind of our thing. Even for kind of, that's why the long tail does matter, because we don't want to leave any customer hanging. Yeah. We want to make sure their needs are met on AWS.
Yeah, and you have all the data, and the bigger models are doing that work. I want to ask you about the breakthroughs. We talked about sales and marketing and coding being kind of the value areas where people first kind of go at, because it's natural instinct to go where the value can be extracted and created and extracted. When you look at like the two areas that we're looking at with the Cube and SiliconANGLE, there's the new thing that's going to emerge out of the models. A new consumer app, who knows what's going to come next, in all these waves. I mean, it's a petri dish right now, a lot of things going on, but what will happen is a new brand will emerge. That's just natural. We predict that. We don't know yet what it is, but call that a net new thing. Then the existing environment that we live in is going to be focused on. So if you got coders and you got sales and marketing, you're selling something's impacted. That's workflows. So there's a real era towards applying agentic to workflows because they're already there. You mentioned healthcare. I mean, they've been tagging data. They've actually been AI ready before AI readiness was a term because they had to because of the regulation. Yes, exactly. And so that's kind of a gift. Thank you very much. Their IT budget has not always been as big as JP Morgan, but they're kind of in a good spot. And so you have workloads that are well scoped with domains, with domain experts, kind of lines up to it all rhymes now, but now they have the cost problem. So is there an AI agent to say, hey, I know your workload, you're better off running a little bit of DeepSeek, a little bit of that. I can see an era where the intelligence gets down to understanding the infrastructure and then matches the workload, and the agents are kind of managing that.
I think that kind of is we launched this thing called multi-agent collaboration at reInvent last year, and it became generally available within the last 6 months that we're covering in this interview. But one of the things there is you can have different agents powered by different models, and when you have this multi-agent collaboration, you basically break down your bigger problem into smaller chunks. Just like in a company, there's an HR person, there is a person that focuses on finance. You can have basically different, and again, each workflow will have different set of complexities, and you probably want not just complexities, also specializations. So for a specific kind of workflow in the healthcare example that you took, there may be an agent that makes use of evolutionary scales model. Other agent needs more thinking, reasoning. It makes use of Claude Sonnet 4. And then there is another agent that makes use of Noah Light because it's kind of like a very high volume use case that you want to do in an absolute kind of economic way. So you're probably going to see kind of rise of different models even being used in the same workflow more and more often. We already had some of that with RAG, where everybody had to use an embeddings model, and everybody had to use at least one kind of generative model. So that kind of combination existed in the past, but you're going to see increasing combination of multiple models being used by customers even in the same workflow.
I was talking to Matt Garman and I was commenting because I've been following Amazon for the past 20 years as a customer and 15 with 16 with theCUBE.
Yeah.
And I've watched the progression of DevOps and DevSecOps as the cloud has been great for everybody and great for the industry. But now we're at a time where you guys, I say Petri dish, but really more of a test lab, because if you look at what Amazon has, you have DevOps, you have platform engineering, you have all the building going on, you have the models, and that's why I love the memo of getting used to the muscle of AI from a workflow standpoint, because that's their building culture. Okay, I get that, check. A little commercial for Amazon there. But what it means is that you guys are in the best position to understand the intersection of DevOps and how to build models for value. So to create the value and then extract the value. So I have to ask, when you look at like the intersection of, say, platform engineering, Kubernetes has been a great rallying point around that part of the stack for orchestration.
Yeah.
Okay, great, microservices, all that stuff, containers, whatever. You guys are great at that. Now, the question is, what are startups and companies rallying around the Bedrock and above infrastructure? Is there a solidarity? Is there a de facto? Is it MCPs? What is the rallying point? Because as the startups kind of get in, they're going to be selling to the enterprise. They're going to be creating the next big thing. What is the rallying point, or what is the gravity around people to get involved in, to get some sort of de facto standard or vibe, like, hey, we can do this, and then articulate that to, say, customers?
So I think there is, we obviously have some building blocks for those things about the model that are going to be required. But the key kind of high level paradigms that are kind of, I think of, security is going to be a critical part for when customers build these applications and they're agentic powered. Like how do these agents communicate with each other securely? There is a lot of data that's going to probably kind of go across boundaries. How do you make sure that data is secure? I think that's number one. Number two is observability. I think you want to understand kind of like a particular interaction with the customer happened, kind of what was the workflow and kind of what data went where, and kind of if things failed, kind of why did they fail. And you would want kind of a better version of evaluation, where you're not evaluating models, but you're evaluating kind of the entire pipeline. I think it's almost like application.
It's like blood flow. It's like the bloodstream travels through the body. I mean, the agents can be running around everywhere doing things.
Right. I think the analogy is we've had application performance monitoring and kind of things like Amazon X-ray, but you need that for the agentic world, where kind of you're going to have kind of a complete visibility into a request coming in and kind of the final kind of thing when the application workflow is completed. How do you ensure all that is happening seamlessly in a secure manner, and you are not seeing deviations? I think that's going to be the kind of next kind of big thing. And I think just having better kind of control on some of this is what customers are going to care most about.
How do you integrate the observability? Because I think that's a great point, because observability, if you look at kind of this origin, go back to the old days of Splunk, log files.
Yeah.
And then the conversation there was data exhaust is now data gold, right? And that was very valuable for understanding what's going on, where the trouble spots are, how to automate, so early days of automation. You take that to agents, that is basically monitoring, right? So whether it's application monitoring or agent monitoring, there's a surveillance kind of active, passive kind of environment of what's going on.
Right.
Like a doctor, what's the health of the system? Yeah. Is it accurate? How do you view that, and how do that integrate into Bedrock? And how should customers be thinking about framing that kind of part of the architecture?
I think, again, we do have some kind of building blocks today. You're going to see improvements on that, and some to varying degrees. Some improvements are going to be small, some improvements are going to be big, and you'll see in the next coming months. But as I said, like Bedrock today already kind of customers can use Bedrock in the context of their VPC. A lot of customers do that because security is important. We already have kind of model evaluation. We have RAG evaluation. We don't necessarily have good kind of agent evaluation. And that's probably an area of kind of growth where you would see in the next few weeks and months. And obviously, we have integration with CloudWatch and CloudTrail, where today customers can log basically all their interactions with Bedrock models. We have called model invocation logging, where every prompt and response can be logged, and customers. This is not accessible to Bedrock. This is in customer's account, and they can go and access that. But I think it is a start of a solution. It is not the solution. Just to be candid, I think the way things are evolving in this space right now, we will have to do a lot more to help customers truly kind of understand going beyond the models and going to their application.
Yeah, I think the application layer is going to be the hottest. We were at a kind of a bunch of tech guys getting together, kite surfing last weekend in Hawaii, and we're talking, and conversation was the actions at the business logic, at the application layer. You're enabling that with Bedrock. It's very clear, and it's clear from all the presentations. The question is, okay, how do you do an AppSec review? I asked the CIO of JP Morgan Chase at reInvent and theCUBE, Lori Beer, I said, Gen AI, she's like, look, we know machine learning. Like we've been doing that, fraud detection, the list goes on and on. Gen AI, they have a high bar for the cyber resilience for security. I go, so how do you deal with it? Well, it's just another app to us. So, I mean, a little bit off the cuff, a little bit over the top, but not wrong, right? So if Gen AI is an app, it's app review. So what do you guys look at in the roadmap for customers to think about, okay, what's the sequence of events? What's the requirements? How do I get stuff into production faster? That's a big trend we're seeing. A lot of sandboxes are overloaded right now with POCs. Startups kind of in purgatory, like waiting. They're trying to figure out how to integrate in to the enterprise, on the enterprise side. So there's kind of that going on. What's your view of that, and how are you helping unblock? Are you like the TSA pre-clear for enterprise, or like, you know?
You're asking definitely the right questions. I think, as I said, we have certain offerings today, and we are going to continue to kind of help customers on this front. And I think it comes down to helping customers debug because better. I think at the end of the day, this is an application and a workflow. Like there could be many things. It's like, how do you chunk your kind of data? Do you have kind of the right kind of re-ranker? Did you have kind of what model do you use? Was the latency good enough? Did your agent kind of synchronize properly? Did it not synchronize properly? Did you regress in performance for various reasons? Now this is going to be the workflow that is going to be there. I think debugging applications itself has evolved. It's not like a static thing. So you're going to have new kind of set of problems in the agentic world that will have to be tackled, and I think you're absolutely. I think that's definitely a customer need that is going to get more and more kind of intense over the next few.
And then you guys, your mission is to make the customers abstract away the complexity. So hopefully we'll see that. The demand is high, obviously. So if you look back at Bedrock, congratulations on all the success. I remember when it first came out, it's like, where's Sage making bids and all this? So good clarity on the positioning. I like the infrastructure vibe there. The enablement's there, the market's evolving, so you just kind of got to roll with the wave you're on. If I'm a customer, how do I figure this out? So knowing what you know, are you guys doing deep research into making the native AI capabilities better? Could you share what you're doing on research, things that you do, and what customers can do? Do they have to have a little new research competency team? We're seeing the role of the chief AI officer, which is not becoming like a political position, it's becoming more of a CTO who's just got another job responsibility. I mean, I talked to one the other day, they're like, it's my fourth job. I want to get out of that as fast as possible, which is counterintuitive, because they want to infuse AI into everything and not have to be the chief AI officer.
Well, I think if I think about Bedrock, there are two things. Number one is we want to provide customers the best choice of models. Number two is they should have the best combination of accuracy, latency, and cost for those models on Bedrock, which includes kind of also all sorts of capabilities that help you manage the combination of accuracy, latency, and cost, example, prompt caching and intelligent prompt routing. The third one is additional set of tools that you would require, things to build agents, to build kind of rack pipelines, so things like all related kind of model evaluation, and then kind of all the observability capabilities that we kind of touched upon. So you're going to require all those tooling, and we want to be comprehensive on those capabilities, and we want to be good at those capabilities. So that's kind of how I would think about it. In terms of your question on the research arm, I think one of the things that Gen AI does is that it offloads a lot of the research capabilities to the best labs in the world. You have Anthropic doing cutting edge research. You have smart folks at DeepSeek doing things. We are investing in our research on models with the NOAA team. So I think most companies and for most customers, they don't have to do cutting edge research anymore. I think it's more about how do you use this models and the tools to do your job effectively. And I think ensuring that someone's thinking about the end-to-end kind of apps for this, and it requires some thinking, but it's definitely not a research job necessarily. Yeah. Of course, for some companies, they may have to do complex fine-tuning, complex distillation, but those I expect to be more of the exceptions than the norm.
Yeah, and you guys are taking that on at Bedrock. You're doing a lot of that on behalf of customers.
Right. But I think the important is you mentioned SageMaker. I think there are going to be, because SageMaker also allows you to do fine-tuning and distillation. It's just that it's the difference is the number of knobs and levers. For someone who's a data scientist, someone who's a machine learning expert who wants absolute control, they want to do complex things and add new neural layers or kind of do something kind of unique on the model front, they can kind of go use SageMaker. Bedrock, the number of knobs and levers is limited. It's more designed for a developer who wants to kind of get to the outcome fast. It is designed for that. Of course, and we have good integration between Bedrock and SageMaker with the custom model import. So once if a customer ever wants to do complex things with the model, they can do kind of all sorts of surgery on the model, and then they can basically export that model into Bedrock, and then that's available for them in the Bedrock API.
SageMaker is where the action is if you want to get under the hood, basically.
Exactly, yes.
And the model on the dashboard, the dashboard is Bedrock. I want to mix and match and interface.
Exactly.
Quick site and things of that nature can come in and get great value. Great innovations on Q. I want to get your thoughts because I think the real upside to me is what Bedrock and SageMaker do with all the obviously integrated in the chips. We didn't even get there, but maybe do that in another interview. But that's happening. We know that. Is that once this is set up, quick site comes in, Q for developer kicks in. This is where the action is.
Yes.
Share your thoughts because you have history with Q, and now that tooling is almost going to be seamless under the hood for the developer and the business user.
Yeah. So I think, again, I think to touch upon kind of our strategy on Gen AI, which is we have 3 layers of the stack. At the bottommost layer is the infrastructure layer where we have custom chips. We have SageMaker for people who want to build their models and do kind of complex surgery. Middle layer, which is Bedrock, which is the classic developer destination for platform, kind of Gen AI platform tools, capabilities, models. And then the top layer, we have kind of applications where like customers are ready to go kind of use kind of these directly. They don't have to tinker with any of the platform layer capabilities or the infrastructure capabilities. Q Developer, I am passionate about Q Developer because I was one of the founding launch PMs for Q Developer back in the day, or back then known as Code Whisperer. And I think
proud, must be a proud papa then.
Well, it's very awesome to see the evolution of Q Q Developer, because the models back then were not as powerful and compelling as they are. We didn't have the notion of agents kind of was vaguely like present, but we didn't have models that could reason. And now the level of capabilities that you could do with Q Developer and the kind of experience within Amazon, we see people using Q CLI. Like it is really taken off in a big way, and we see developers kind of using that nonstop. Like now, so
it's a classic value creation, value extraction. The first 2 layers, a lot of value creation on the setup, get everything teed up. Q, quick site, value extraction for the customer.
All right.
All right, I got to ask you, so a lot's happened. Summarize the first 6 months, if you could. I know it's a lot. And then looking forward, I know we got the summit in New York. We'll be there with the Q all week in our NYSE studio, as well as on site on Wednesday, the 14th, I believe, of July. And then we've got reInvent's almost 6 months away. I'm sure you're getting ready for that too. So it feels like reinvent's already happened again. It feels like
Yeah.
halfway points is kind of a reinvent moment. So much has gone on. What's happened in the past 6 months? How would you articulate the past 6 months of your life?
So I think past 6 months we've seen a lot of model launches and amazing model launches. Sonnet 3.7 came in. It was one of the best coding models, and then now recently was appended by Sonnet 4 and Opus 4. So we are seeing kind of tremendous traction on the coding front. We saw kind of improved models from Nova. We saw Nova Premier, which is our kind of state-of-the-art kind of model, and we also had Nova Sonic, which I'm personally very excited about because I do like interacting with these like models on a speech-to-speech basis. Like the responsiveness for someone who has like a background in speech recognition and ASR, automatic speech to text, like these models like just completely bypass this whole speech to text part and just get it. Like it's just amazing to kind of interact with these models. So that's the part and obviously DeepSeek happened, and then we are going to see more of DeepSeek in the next few months. Llama 4 happened. So I think there's just like a lot of innovation on the model front. Late last year, MCP came out, and I think it was, people who were in the space were like wowed, but I think the level of excitement and interest in MCP is obviously interesting.
That's a rallying point for sure.
Yeah, and I think you are going to see kind of us leaning more into MCP over the next few weeks and months. We have done already, kind of we support, as I said, AWS services. Number of AWS services support MCP, have an MCP server, and you can interact with them that way. We've also made a number of our capabilities that we launched at reInvent generally available: prompt caching, model distillation, intelligent prompt routing, and some of the other capabilities that are still in kind of preview will be generally available over the next few months. So one of the things, as I said, I'm very excited about automated reasoning. It really changes the game on making sure kind of you can rely on the model. I think that part is going to be awesome in the next few months. And I think the last I would say is just kind of the rise of agents. We launched Bedrock agents in New York Summit of 23. And back then it was
BI basically was the pitch there, right? I mean,
right. Sorry, 24. I'm losing track of time.
Yeah.
New York Summit of
24.
24. Actually, no.
Year.
I take it back. It was 23. We launched New York Bedrock agents.
Yeah, Swami was on stage.
Correct, exactly. And it was like agents was like a very foreign topic at that point. The React paper had literally just come out in earlier that year. The reasoning action paper, not the other React. But and we launched Bedrock agents. But again, the models at that time did not have this incredible reasoning capability. That's why I keep saying that the tools in the models have to be in lockstep. And now I think
They are in lockstep right now. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think they are.
Things are moving super
way more
fast.
in lockstep than ever before.
Well, I think the activity on the open source on the developer side is also another tell sign. Lockstep, you're seeing action. So I have to ask you, as someone who has a CS degree from over 30 years ago, I'm a founder, so I can relate to the younger generation. But the Gen Alpha and the Gen Zs, they take to AI like it's a fish to water. So what are you seeing from the young guns coming up? When I was kind of 15 years ago, I was like, oh man, EC2, I'd have to get a server and then put it in the data center. Oh, this is great. 3 building blocks. Okay, got some primitives. Now you got a whole nother stack on top of Amazon Web Services. So you still got S3, you still got all that goodness, got serverless. So you have still all that stuff going down over there. What are the young people gravitating to? What's the usage patterns? Can you share any anecdotal view of, as you see Bedrock kind of rising, what is the action for the young, talented, or old systems thinkers who see this as just a dream scenario?
You're asking about the younger generation or the...
Well, both. I mean, I've seen some older system folks that have systems backgrounds say, oh my God, this is like an operating system. I can code it in like a day. I mean, it's kind of that almost magical on the computer science side. So start with the younger generation.
I think on the younger generation part, I think the expectations are just high. I think they expect Gen AI to be natively integrated, particularly in terms of applications. My kids are 7 and 9, and they almost expect they expect an intelligent response from any of these tools now. It's just like shocking. I'm like,
get your own QA department at home.
I'm like, wow. I mean, and they're like, if you don't know, go ask ChatGPT or any of the consumer applications to kind of get a response or Perplexity, and the responses are pretty darn good because they use obviously Gen AI behind the scenes. And then On kind of the other generation, the other end of the generation, I think you're seeing kind of productivity boosts, particularly kind of people. I think there was the initial reluctance to kind of fully kind of trust and believe in some of these things, particularly 2 years back or 3 years back when we first started kind of seeing this. But the quality is improved now, where it's kind of now starting to become the norm, and I think the level of adoption, I think it's the new norm on this.
It's classic enthusiasm, now confidence.
Yeah.
Because it's almost just natural to be a skeptic.
Yeah. I mean, I personally use, like, Amazon's a very company very heavy on docs and thinking, and I literally feed my entire kind of strategic doc I'm presenting to Matt or Andy, and I basically say, here's my doc, kind of critique it. Kind of, I'm presenting this to the CEO of Amazon, CEO of AWS, and like, what do you think? Am I missing? Is this coherent? And sometimes, like, the most recent example was I had a very strategic doc and I had a follow-up doc, and I basically pasted the entire
Do you
entire
train
thing.
your AI to know how Andy and Matt review docs?
Well, this is all in context learning, so
Yeah.
it's not trained, right?
Yeah.
This is like
Okay.
the models. But if you pass the right context, and basically you can ask it to criticize, you can ask it to find thinking flaws, and it's like, what if given this context, what else would you expect? And it actually has pretty good kind of responses.
I mean, I've used Anthropic to check some of my writings. Does this
Yeah.
hang together? Oh, yeah. Think about it's really a great recommendation engine. Feeds my learning, also my output.
Yeah. Also for brainstorming, I think people use it like, I think the people are not using kind of the full power of it in the way that you should. And I think it's these models are incredible brainstorming tools as well.
I was talking to a healthcare worker, and she asked me advice on career. She's like, "Should I start coding Python?" I'm like, no, that was 3 years ago. Get into AI. And she's like, "What do I do?" I'm like, "What do you know?" She's like, "I know all the workflows. I know all the business logic." I go, "Write that down."
Yeah.
How should people like that person who have opportunities to be a builder and a needle mover to go in and affect change? Because they have all the requisites in place, they just don't have the coding. So how does that person connect into Bedrock? How do they engage, and how do they get instant gratification that their knowledge could be translated into something that moves the needle?
So I think this is where the level of abstraction comes into picture. For Bedrock, we wish we could make it that easy for everyone, but that's not our target kind of customer base. We're targeting developers. It's an API-based service, but I think for customers like that who want to get kind of make use of their skills, kind of just be on a prompting basis, Q Business would be the way to go about it. Q Business, QuickSight, those would be the tools for them where they can create applications. Q Business also allows you to create apps, and you can create those apps just based on prompts and kind of go about kind of your work.
Yeah, the old days was you get a PowerPoint, get funding, then you do a prototype, put it on AWS, get funding. Now it's like build an app and have a bunch of users on a prototype in a week, and now you get funding. So the whole entrepreneurial equation's changed.
I think the statement that you're going to have multiple billion-dollar companies powered by a single individual, I think that is really going to, I think it's a matter of when and not a question of if at this point.
Atul, great to have you on. And again, congratulations on all the success on Bedrock. Been following from day one. The clarity's there. Love the developer positioning. A lot of needs there. Again, sales and marketing is product app. And engineering and software is where the value is created. So value creation market we're in, and now let's get that value out.
Thanks, John.
Thanks for coming on. Okay, I'm John Furrier here for the AWS Halftime Report. Really the most important story is where these models fit into the scheme of creating value and extracting value, and also putting together the stack to scale them at large scale. Of course, tokens will be feeding these agents, and the agents are coming. They're already here. I'm John Furrier. Thanks for watching.